Alright, so I've loaded the OBJ here in ZBrush. I'm going to go ahead and subdivide this quite a bit. Just enough so that I can start sculpting some detail into this. So our base mesh looks pretty good. I'm going to go to layers and I'm going to work with layers. I like to do that as it's a very non-destructive workflow. So I'll create a first layer called just some edge damage. And I'm going to grab myself the mallet fast brush and just start to go ahead and use that brush to chip away some detail here. Also make sure to turn on symmetry in the Z-axis so we can get both sides done at the same time. So just come in here and just chip away some of the edges here just to create some edge damage. So basically we're going to be layering stuff here in terms of our systematic approach to sculpting this. So you could start off with whatever part you want. In this case, what I'm starting off with is doing some damage and wear and tear on the edges of what would essentially be this concrete wall. So we go along all of the edges and just use this brush, very subtle. I'm using Z sub with an intensity of about 13. This gives me a very nice subtle look to the damage. I don't want to go too far or else I'll just deform the object in a very bad way. So just come in here with your brush and chip away some of this stuff, create some damage, make it look convincing. Okay. Sometimes going over this and doing a couple of passes with a brush can just add a little more detail and make the object look a little bit more complete. So just come in here and anything you feel that needs more wear and tear, just add a little bit more. And if you don't want to damage it that much, just don't sculpt that area too much. So this is looking pretty good. I'll create a new layer over here. I'm going to call this one General Deform. Basically we can use the move brush to move some areas around because it was looking more like some kind of a Lego piece or something like that. And I want this to look like it's pretty old. I want this broken down wall to look like it's been worn and it's aged pretty good. So using the move brush I can move some of the areas around and just make it look more natural. Then I'll add another layer called General Noise. And in this one I'm going to use something called the Planks brush. And the Planks brush is great for doing something like this. So you can see I'm adding some noise to this. And you can go to the layer and change the value that it has. So at 0.75, it'll have less effect on the object. So it's almost like taking the opacity of a layer and dropping it down, if you want to think of it that way. So we'll create a new layer called Interior Mask. In this layer, I'm going to use the Deco Brush, the Deco 7 brush. There's several Deco brushes. They're all pretty similar, but they all have their own unique way of working. In this case, I'm using the Deco 7 brush with a Z add intensity, okay? Because I want to add instead of subtract. And what I want to do is I want to add some mask to the center here, to the middle. And I'm turning on my polyframe mode so that I can see the wireframe on the object. And it'll help guide me and let me know which area I should add mask to. So I want to add a mask to this using this Deco brush. And I'm also, if you notice, I'm also using an alpha here that gives a little bit of noise. Just makes it look a little bit more natural and realistic. And I'm just adding this mask. And this mask is pretty much the concrete or the cement that is in the middle of the wall. Basically the core of the wall. And it's exposed. By using this brush we can expose this. So just add mask all the way around. And this will expose the what is essentially that cement that's in the middle of the wall. And the Deco brush does a good job of just layering mass on top and not making it look too round but not too squarish either. So it's this very nice mix of something that looks manufactured like a building or something like that, like a wall, but at the same time it has this nice organic feel to it that rock formations or cement or hard objects like that usually have. And of course by using that alpha, at the same time we create some very nice noise, some subtle noise on there that looks very natural and just kind of flows with it and just looks like it belongs. So I'm using a lot of Z intensity here. I'm using about 37. So that's plenty. And you can hold down the Alt key if you want to do the opposite with the brush instead of add, subtract. And I find that usually is a great way of just adding some variety to this, some variation. So I'll go in and I'll use add and just add some mass to this, and then I'll use the subtract by holding down the Alt key and just subtract just a subtle amount, and then maybe add a little bit, smooth it, and then add a little bit more, and just keep working the sculpt. So let's create a new layer now. We'll call this one INT mass noise. So interior mass noise basically. I'm going to add some noise to this interior mass, basically to cement. I'm going to use the noise brush to do that because the noise brush is perfect for doing this kind of stuff. It's great for rocks. It's great for cement. Anything that really needs noise. So I'm using Z-add with an intensity of about 9. And I'm just going in here and just adding some noise. I'm trying to keep the noise mainly on the cement here, the center mass that's sticking out. So just come in here and just kind of nice and easy come in here and paint some of this noise. Awesome. And we'll create a new layer. And we'll call this one edge crumpling. And I'm going to use the crumple brush for this. And the crumple brush is usually used for other things, but I find that using it for like concrete and stuff, it's actually pretty good if you want to get this kind of a look. I'm using Z-add with an intensity of about 19, and you can see how when I come in here and I use this edge crumple brush, how it just kind of deforms this area. And it's great because I want to deform the area's damage on this wall just to kind of emphasize that a little bit more, make it look a little more natural, believable. So you can change the size of the brush and really add a little bit extra crumpling on the edges. So you want to add some general overall soft crumpling to the general area in a large space, and then maybe just come in there with a smaller brush and just add a little bit, iterate it a little bit more, and just add a little bit more crumpling to the edges and stuff. And you can see how that makes a huge difference. If I turn it off and on, you can clearly see how awesome that effect is. It just sells the effect much better. You don't want to go too overboard with this brush though. It will deform the object significantly. So I'm just going to go back to the interior mass noise and soften some of this stuff up by holding Shift. Shift smooths out. And then I'm going to come back in and add a little more noise. The crumple brush, again, it deforms things, so it deformed the noise a little bit. And I didn't like the noise how it looked before anyway. It looked way too rough. So by coming in here and again doing that process of iteration where you smooth or subtract and then add again, it just makes things look more natural. More iterations just seems to look nicer in my opinion. So coming in here and holding Shift and smoothing some of this noise out and then adding the noise back in just makes it look a lot nicer. The results just end up being a whole lot better. And again, the idea here is to use layers. You don't have to use layers in ZBrush. It's an optional workflow, but it's a workflow that I advocate and I advise you to try out, see if you like it, if it works out for you. It's almost like when working with Photoshop or any program that uses layers. You can non-destructively just create a new layer, try out some sculpting, some brush or something, and just keep it in that layer. So let's create a new layer over here called Small Dents. And again, you want to work with layers because it gives you the power of trying different things out and experimenting. And then later, if you don't like what you did, or maybe your boss doesn't like that area of sculpting, and you need to change something, it'd be very difficult to change it if there wasn't layers. With layers, you can just go, oh, okay, well, that crack or that scratch or that dent or whatever it is, that area of sculpting was done with a layer. So I can just go and turn the layer off and show my boss, my director, or whoever, this is what it looks like without the layer. There you go. I find that combining those alphas with different brushes and things can give you pretty much unlimited combinations of possibilities. However, you can always import your own alphas. So you can do that. You can import your own alphas and texture images into ZBrush and use those. So if you have a specific pattern or something you're trying to use, you can create an alpha yourself and then import it into ZBrush and use that for modeling. So I've subdivided this to level 8, and here's the level 1 subdivision. This is the one that you would want to export out. So you want to export out a level 1 subdivision. So you could take that to your 3D program and use that as your base model to normal map on. That would be the base model to put like in a game, for example, or something like that. And then subdivision level 8 is the high-res one. I'm going to export that out as an OBJ. And just give this a name or something that you can remember. Place it somewhere where you can find it easily. Okay? I like to call it from ZBrush. That way I know that it's an object coming from ZBrush and it's a high-res. The exporting process can take a moment. This is a very heavy, dense mesh. That's tens of millions polygons or triangles. It can take a little while to export out, but that's okay. Alright, so if this thing exported out, we're ready to go. Don't forget to export out a low res and high res. And that's going to do it for this video.